March 28th meeting of the Parker Planning Commission to order at 7 p.m. Would you please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call. Absent is Dwayne. Absent is Eric. Absent is Ileana. Absent is Kim. Seated for the vacant seat is Tracy, and seated for Dwayne is Ruth Ann. So there's just four of us, but we're mighty. Are there any additions to or deletions from the agenda?
No, sir, there are not.
Okay. Minutes. The March 14th, 2019 meeting minutes, are there any corrections or additions to those? Or
No.
do we have a motion?
I move we approve the minutes of the March 14, 2019 meeting. Second.
It's been moved by Ruth Ann, seconded by Tracy, that we approve the minutes of the March 14th, 2019 meeting. Please record your vote. You got anything?
Never got a screen.
Nothing's up there yet.
I didn't get a,
No, we didn't. It never appeared.
oh, there it is.
There it is. Again, please record your vote.
Done. There we go.
The minutes are approved. Next, item 6A. This item, as you noted, has been continued to the April 25th, 2019 meeting. Do we have a motion for that?
I move the Planning Commission continue the Parker Plaza Shopping Center rezoning public hearing to April 25th, 2019.
Second.
It's been moved by Rich, seconded by Ruth Ann, that Planning Commission continue the Parker Plaza Shopping Center rezoning public hearing to April 25th, 2019. Again, record your vote.
That was much faster. I voted. I voted.
Sure.
Ta-da.
There we go. And the minutes are approved. All right. Next item, number 6B, Parker Premise Warehouse rezoning. This is a public hearing, and we will open the public hearing at 7:04. Stacy?
Good evening, Chairman and Planning Commission members. This is the Parker Premise Warehouse rezoning. So the subject site is located south of Long's Way, in between 20 Mile Road and Dransville Road. So the intent of the rezoning is to create a zoning that specifically outlines the uses allowed to take place on the property. The current zoning for the property was written in the early 1980s and included a wide variety of uses. The existing 3 buildings were constructed in 2007 to only allow for storage uses. Over time, the use of the spaces within the buildings have expanded beyond storage, which has caused the property to be out of compliance with the land development ordinance, specifically parking and landscaping, as outlined within the approved site plan and the building code. In addition, an ordinance is proposed to remove the property from the Clark PD designation. So a little bit of background on this property. As stated previously, there's a long history of background here. So in 1985, the property was annexed and zoned into the town of Parker. It was zoned Clark Plan Development. Then in 2005, the property was platted and a site plan was approved to construct 3 warehouse buildings totaling 46,327 square feet. In 2009, an additional site plan amendment was approved to allow flex office warehouse uses within Building A, Building C, and Units B1 and B20. In 2014, the property was issued a notice of violation for not constructing the required improvements within the 2009 site plan amendment. A site plan amendment application was submitted to correct this problem, but expired due to insufficient information. Since this application expired, a second notice of violation was issued. Then in 2015, a site plan amendment was approved to withdraw the 2009 site plan amendment and reinstate the original 2005 site plan, which allowed storage warehouse uses only. In 2017, another notice of violation was issued for violation of the 2005 or the original site plan because businesses were operating on the property. So tonight's rezoning is part of the fix to fix this problem, as well as the applicant has submitted a site plan amendment to make changes to the property to allow for the additional uses. This site plan is being reviewed administratively. So the proposed rezoning will allow the expansion of uses on the property. Although the expansion of uses within the buildings is permitted by the Clark Plan Development, the buildings were constructed to allow for storage uses only. So the proposed rezoning takes into account how the buildings were constructed from a building code perspective and outlines the specific uses allowed. Based on the access to each unit and the way the buildings were constructed, only a few light industrial uses beyond storage can be allowed. The proposed rezoning will allow for the expansion of uses on the property to be consistent with the uses taking place for the last 10 years. Several of these uses include an auto detailing company, furniture restoration and finishing, as well as auto repair and service. In order for use beyond storage to legally occur on the property, first the property has to be rezoned, then the site plan amendment would need to be approved. All improvements associated with that site plan amendment would need to be constructed, and then each unit owner would be required to obtain a building permit. The general land use map within the Parker 2035 master plan identifies this property as being within the light industrial character area. The property is represented by the green rectangle in the middle of the map. The light industrial designation should attract light industrial businesses that supply local, regional, and sometimes national markets. Appropriate uses could include manufacturing, machine shops, distribution facilities, flex office, commercial services, and high-tech medical manufacturing. Based on this analysis, staff has determined that the request to rezone the property to the Parker Premise Warehouse Plan Development is consistent with the recommendations of the Parker 2035 Master Plan. Staff has reviewed the proposal and has determined the project is consistent with the master plan, provides adequate access, infrastructure, drainage facilities, and design considerations. Utility providers have confirmed capacity and availability. The project will not result in any additional municipal service costs. The project satisfies the 9 criteria required in the land development ordinance to rezone the property, and all referral agency comments have been addressed. Therefore, staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend that Town Council approve the Parker Premise Warehouse rezoning. This concludes staff's presentation. As always, I'm available for any questions you may have. We also have a representative here for the applicant. Her name is Wendy Curtis, and she will get up and introduce herself to you guys when you're ready.
Questions for Stacy?
The only question I have, we're not zoning anybody out of their property currently, correct?
Correct. So what we're trying to do is fix the problem that's there. So right now, all that's allowed is storage uses.
So anybody who's not just storing is out of compliance?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, we do know that there are some uses taking place in the building that just cannot occur. And so they will have to go.
Okay, so we will be zoning because of building safety requirements and how the buildings were constructed. Can you explain that just a little more?
Yes, so when these buildings were constructed, they were not intended to have lots of people in them. For storage, you usually will have 1 to few people in there at any given time. So based on the building code and the fire code specifically, you have to have ingress and egress out of the building. And once you get over a certain number of people, you have to have them in different locations of the building. So the way we've written the rezoning, the Parker Premise Plan Development, restricts the uses to those that are going to have minimal employees, minimal customers, so that you can meet the building code and the fire code. A use such as like a gym, for example, where you could have lots of people inside there, wouldn't be allowed because you just have too many people for that one egress.
And are these condominium units, so people own them?
Correct.
So we have some owners that are going to be displaced because of this zoning, correct?
We know of one.
Okay. All right.
Regarding that minimal usage, that means that when it was all storage, people would come and go, and there was really no parking issue. So now that there's different businesses in there, and based on those businesses, some people might be staying hours or so in the parking. Is that going to create a problem with parking spaces?
So one of the items that they will be adding through their site plan amendment will be additional parking spaces. So through the 2005 site plan, they had a roughly, I think, 7 to 10 parking spaces. They'll be adding about 72 parking spaces to the site, including ADA accessible spaces.
Okay.
Further questions for Stacy?
Not at this time.
Does the applicant want to come forward? Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Wendy Curtis, 290 North Ogden Street, Denver, 80218.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Do you have questions, or should I
Oh.
just start? I joined this organization. I bought a unit in 2015, and last year they asked me to be on the board at the end of last year. They were in trouble with lawsuits. They didn't have enough money, and they needed some help, and I'm a bit of a bulldog, so I jumped in and helped them. And we've dug ourselves out of 2 out of 3 lawsuits. We were being sued by the ground lease owner because they hadn't properly paid from years ago. They weren't properly funded in 2002 at the turnover. That was really the crux of why the financial things began. But that's been fixed. We've fixed that, and we've also done special assessments for the flex zoning, and we're in the process of irrigation and getting ready for landscape and things like that. Anyway, it needed to be done anyway, and there were no funds. So I think we're, especially with Stacy's help, oh my God, this poor child, I feel so bad for her with all my questions because I repeat these questions because I forget. And I think that we're on the right path, truly.
Okay, questions?
Are any of the units vacant now, or are they all filled?
They're all owned. Mine happens to be vacant because I just lost my tenant, but there's a few things like that.
Okay.
Other question?
Nope.
And you have already agreed, working with staff, that you'll be able to make all the changes that'll be required once this is put into effect to accommodate the variance that you're
Yes,
needing?
ma'am.
Okay.
And we'll be funded, I believe it's in May, we'll be fully funded. And we have to complete all these things by the end of the year, but they'll be completed by midsummer, I think.
Okay. Good.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Further questions for Stacy?
Nope.
No, it's good to see things getting cleaned up, although having yet another PD is kind of not the direction we wanted to go in. But I understand the reasoning for needing it now.
Yes, and one of the reasons for this PD is we have to be very specific of what uses can occur on the property. We feel that if the zoning were specific to what uses could go in there, we might not have as many problems as we have had since this property was constructed.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, as this is a public hearing, we always allow for the public to comment. So anyone who wishes to speak about this matter that is before us, the Parker Premise Warehouse, please step forward to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Kevin Behrens, and I own the property at 18448 Longs Way and 18436 Longs Way. So we're directly west of this mess, and it's been a mess. And I don't believe they have enough parking. They've been running business out of this place for years, and nobody's doing anything about it. And there's huge parking issues, safety issues along Longs Way from people that are just, vehicles sit there for weeks at a time. I've reported it to police. They said they can't do anything about it. I'm totally opposed to this. I think it lowers the value of my property, and I have two very nice buildings. And this property has been not maintained well. They're disrespectful. They don't follow any codes, and they do whatever they want. I would like to see the parking plan. I have, I don't know, probably 100 or more parking spots in my two buildings, which was required when I built. And I paid a substantial amount of money for these buildings to be built so that they met city code. And now, just because we have some people that haven't followed the rules and have done whatever they want, basically, now we're going to change the zoning so that these guys can run businesses. There's no bathrooms in most of these. I have no idea how they would get that many parking spots. I'd like to see that plan, and I haven't seen it. And secondly is, how do they meet the building codes as far as bathrooms, egress, all the other stuff that I did when I built? So, like we need more storage in Parker. I agree, we don't need more storage in Parker. But just because they've been misusing the buildings for the last, I built in 2008, and it's been going on ever since I've been there. Now we're going to change it to try to help them out. I think that's ridiculous. They should go back and do exactly what they're supposed to be doing, and that's storage. So I can tell you I know of at least 8 businesses that operate out of those spaces. And they don't meet any codes. And I know the building department's aware of it and has basically done very little about it as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I had them red tag my building one time because of a wall that I built inside the building that was a half wall. And then that was when Gil was here. And I think, that's ridiculous. No, actually, it was because the roof was leaking when they did an inspection. Well, what's the double standard here? And why would we be allowing these guys to run businesses out of, these things are storage units. That's all they are. So, I would like to see the parking plan. I would like to see the street cleaned up. It looks like a junkyard. I have multi-million-dollar buildings, very nice-looking buildings, way better than these things. And we have cars parked there for weeks at a time. This last snowstorm, the city plowed around them. I had to plow around them because they just sat there on the street. They're still there now. So, why do we want this?
All right.
So
Thank you,
that's
Mr.
my
Barnes.
opinion.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Vicky Zwart, and I own the building east of this property. Heritage Pet occupies that building, that's my business. The address that we occupy is 18648 Longs Way. I have some big concerns about rezoning this property as well. Something needs to be done, we need to fix this property, but I'm not sure if rezoning it is the answer. I agree, it was built as a storage unit. Maybe we should use it as a storage unit, as it was intended. This property's been, like my neighbor said, a big problem in the neighborhood for quite a lot of years. It's been not kept up, weeds, trash, derelict cars on the street, parked for weeks at a time, like my neighbor said, trailers just everywhere, people parking in all different directions. People come to my building sometimes to use the restroom. I think that's kind of crazy. And the weeds that come over into my property is ridiculous. The trash that blows over. We've got to do something. I'm not sure that rezoning is the answer. I'm not really sure what the answer is. Maybe rezoning will work. I'm not opposed to rezoning, but I would like to see a plan for parking, because I can't imagine putting that many parking spots on that property. So I think we need to, kind of look at this a little bit more and make sure that that makes sense. Something needs to be done, but I'm not sure what. So I'm just very concerned about what is going on next door and what's been going on next door for many years. There's a hole in the concrete on the sidewalk between my property and their property that's about 6 or 8 inches around, and it goes down pretty deep. And I don't know why it's there. Somebody one day came and dug a hole in the concrete, and it's just there. Another time we had a water leak on their property, and it just leaked and leaked and leaked and leaked and leaked. And in the winter, it turned into, seriously, a 4-foot-high ice sculpture. That was kind of pretty to look at, but we were like, God, why didn't somebody do something about fixing this? So that's just kind of my 2 cents worth. I appreciate your time, and thanks for listening.
Thank you. Seeing no further comment, we will close the public comment. Stacy, any?
Sure, so I can address a couple of those questions that were
Okay.
asked. With the parking plan, please contact me, leave me your email address, and I can send you over what they're proposing for their parking so you guys can see it. How we are looking at this is it's very, very limited to office space. And so that's where you typically have the mass of your parking. When you have more of a warehouse or storage area, your parking requirements go down a lot. And within the zoning, we've limited office to 10% of each unit. Each unit's roughly about 900 to 1,000 square feet. So you'd get about 90 to 100 square feet of office in any given unit. So we tried to make that work to still meet all the codes. And the zoning was written that way to accommodate that. When it goes to maintenance responsibilities, each property, including the sidewalk, landscaping, is the responsibility of the property owner. So we are aware that there are some landscaping violations. That was in their last notice of violation. They are cleaning that up. We do have a landscape amendment proposed with the site plan amendment, which will be replacing a bunch of the dead materials that are out there with more drought tolerant species. so hopefully they can survive. The applicant, we've talked to them about trying to get out there and maintain their property on a more consistent basis, but the way the town regulates this is through code enforcement. So if we do get a complaint that the weeds are overgrown, there's cracks in the sidewalks, potholes, that is the responsibility of the property owner. And so if those come up, contact us. We can get one of our code enforcement officers out to the site to let them know that they need to fix something. And then with regards to building code requirements, as I stated in the presentation, is although the zoning could be changed and the site plan amendment could be approved, that doesn't give the right for any business to locate in there. They still have to pull a building permit and meet all building codes. So we need to know what they're doing, what the building inside's gonna look like, and do they meet building codes. So we will be looking at that as each unit comes in for permits.
Okay.
So
Questions for
does that
Stacy?
mean that each of these units, based on their use, would be required to have a bathroom, a restroom?
So based on building code, and we have talked about this with Parker Water and the building department, right now, you can see the middle building on this has a sidewalk to it. That's where their bathrooms are located. They have bathrooms that are shared for the whole facility. That's how it was constructed. Based on the building code, certain uses, you have to be within a certain distance of a restroom to have an office sort of use. And so they will be looking at that, and like accessibility, how do you get there? Can you get there? Are they open to the public? That sort of thing. They are key coded, so you have to put in a code to get into the bathrooms now. So it's all stuff we're gonna have to look at. And then if a bathroom is required for that unit to meet building code, Parker Water will have to chime in on unit counts and getting those in there.
Okay, I know one of the owners of the near property complained about people coming from this property to go use their bathroom or restroom. Is there some kind of ordinance or some way they could post in each unit, there is a bathroom on this site, like a community bathroom on this site, public bathroom?
They should be using their restroom on the property. But yeah, they could post on their property.
So is that something the town can enforce as one of the code violations or not?
I don't believe so, because we don't have anything within the site plan or the town's land development ordinance that says that you have to have restrooms open to the public and available for them.
Okay. And as far as parking on the street for extended days or weeks, what's the town ordinance on that?
So I believe this just got changed. This is because it's a town road, it's town owned and maintained, we'd follow the town statutes. And I know we just updated this, I wanna say it's 72 hours. And that would be a code complaint. We'd have to call code enforcement to go out there. I believe they have a marker to mark that the car's there, and then to verify that it hasn't moved within 72 hours.
And then the town would have somebody tow it, a company tow it?
I believe so. I believe our police department, I think we try to notify them. We put something on their windshield and let them know, if you don't move this, it's gonna be towed. And I believe we try to run a report to see if we can contact anyone who owns it and reach out to them to move their car before we do that.
Okay, yeah, it kind of sounds like that's not really happening, and hopefully it could be enforced a little better or overseen a little better, that they would not stay there for a real extended period of time.
Right. And with all code enforcement issues, we are complaint driven. So if there's something out there, give us a call and we'll get you in touch with the correct people and get it started.
Okay.
Nope. The public comment's over, sir.
Do you know if this is like a condo situation, correct? Do they have rules and regulations that they enforce for the people who own and/or rent in this facility?
They do. So you have a landowner, and then each building is condominiumized. So each unit is individually owned. And then they do have like an HOA, and Wendy is on the board of that HOA, and they do have covenants through that HOA that have the rules and regulations for the property.
And has staff looked at those rules and regulations to see that they're compliant with the building codes that are going to be enforced?
We have not looked at their covenants. We typically don't because we cannot enforce them or regulate them.
So will the condos will each one of the condo units have to submit their site plan, or will the condo as a whole have to submit their site plans for review, just like the rest of the businesses?
Right, so they'll have one site plan for the whole property, which will be anything on the exterior of the building. So landscaping, parking, anything outside. And then interior to the building, to change the use from storage to something else, they'll have to get a building permit. And planning is a referral on all building permits, so we get a look at the use, how much office space, anything that they're gonna do on the inside of that building.
And follow-up question to that is, what's the time frame that we're going to have? So if this passes, what's the time frame that they're going to have to either submit or correct?
So one of the things, we have drafted up a development agreement that's associated with the site plan. And that has specific deadlines that the property has to meet in order for the site plan to still be valid. The first one is, within the zoning ordinance tonight, there is a condition that says the zoning will not be recorded or go into effect until the site plan is approved. So they kind of go hand in hand. Then the development agreement that goes with the site plan says that all improvements have to be completed by December 31st, 2019. So they have that strong deadline of you have until you get this approved, that long to get all the improvements completed, which should be plenty of time. And those are their deadlines. Building permits is gonna be on a unit-by-unit basis. So we know of a few units out there that are being used for businesses. Hopefully, we can get them to come in and get their building permits right away. The other ones that we're not sure of, it'll be complaint-driven, or we'll have to go out and have a building inspector knock on a door and go inside, see if anybody answers. In 2017, myself, as well as our fire life safety inspector and one of our code enforcement officers, spent 2 days on the property just knocking on doors and talking to people and asking what they're using it for, to try and see if we got people there, and if they are there, what's their business. And we do have those all written down, but there were some units that nobody answered.
Thanks.
Additional question?
Well, I'm just, so January 1st, 2020, you've got people who, say, haven't pulled their building permits and are still running a business. What is the city's, what would you do at that point to enforce the zoning that's been voted on tonight?
We have two remedies. So planning can issue a notice of violation that you're in violation of your zoning. And building department has a stop work, or a red tag. You can go out there and red tag it and say you cannot occupy the structure until you have an approved building permit.
Okay. And is there any coordination that that would have with this homeowners or condo owners association?
We could work hand in hand together. They have been working with the town since the last notice of violation in 2017. They've changed their board. So they've been working with us pretty well, calling us, giving us the information that we asked for, which we
Okay.
weren't getting previously.
And could you explain why you felt that rezoning was the answer to the issues in this property rather than strictly enforcing the warehouse? What is the thinking of staff behind that?
So this has been one of those projects and properties that has not ever gone away since it started.
Right?
So I took this over in 2013.
Okay.
Have been working on it ever since. In 2015, that was our remedy. Let's just revoke the flex office use, kick everybody out of there, and all you have is storage warehouse. That came down to the landowner needing to evict all those unit owners from their own unit. That was done in a public hearing in front of the Planning Commission. It was all agreed upon, and then nothing happened. So unit owners were given till the end of the year. I think it went in July. They're given till the end of the year to get those businesses out of the property. And then starting January 1st, 2016, they were still there, and nothing happened. And so that's where we've spent 2 days on the property, knocking on doors, recording everything that we found, and that's where the next notice of violation came in. And this is what the landowner now wants is to try to make this work. The HOA is trying to make this work. Most of the unit owners are trying to make this work too. So everybody's trying to work together to come to an agreeable end. So from staff's perspective, we think this could be the better route, and rezoning it to be very specific in the zoning of these are the uses that are allowed. So most business owners, when they're going or looking to buy a property, will check the zoning and verify if their business is an approved business there. And if it's not, usually they won't buy. So we're hoping with that backup, because if before you went to the Clark Plan Development, every use under the sun was approved.
Right.
So hopefully with that backup with the new zoning, it may help us.
Okay.
No guarantees.
One more question, I guess. So if this was denied to be rezoned, and would something else have to become before the planning commission to evict those current people or current users in there because they're not in compliance with the area?
I believe that's more of a legal question. I don't believe anything would have to come back before you guys to evict the businesses out of the property. It would really rely on attorneys and court orders to get people out.
So if it were to come to that, then a lot of people could be removed from there, and those units might not be refilled, and the property could go down even more than it is.
Yeah, that's a
Possibly.
possibility.
Okay.
Further questions for Stacy?
No.
All right, then we will close the public hearing at 7:36. Commissioner discussion?
Gary, I saw you nod when Stacy was giving us some of the background. Were you on the board then?
I was.
Do you have anything to add?
I would just say I see a greater level of willingness to cooperate from the HOA that wasn't present last time. And I think as the chair of the HOA pointed out, and I remember that coming up last time, the number of the litigation they were involved in, and they were buried. I mean, I'm surprised they got out. I mean, bless your heart for that job. But yes, and there were issues with the land lease. Somebody owns the land lease, and there were issues there, and I'm not seeing some of that now. That it's more of seems a bit of an upward tick. And that's just my observation of reviewing the notes from
Right.
several meetings.
I think, Richard, you made a great point about the potential of the building to go downhill if that was the route that we chose, was to say no to rezoning and to potentially have to go through legal and evacuate a lot of those tenants. I think that that's a great point, and, because of the willingness of the tenants to step up and the potential for the building to improve, I'm for it.
Yeah, with that and with new people taking over the HOA situation, and from what Gary said about, it seems like it's improved a lot from the first time it came before the Planning Commission. I'm tending to hopefully that things will keep improving and go ahead and approve the rezoning so that everything can come more into compliance and be consistent in the area.
Yeah, I totally understand the frustration of the owner of the two buildings who got up and spoke about how, just make it warehouses and make them all go away. But I think that there's a better shot at improving the surroundings and the environs and the landscaping and addressing through code enforcement aggressively a lot of these problems. I think there's a better shot at doing that with the solution that Stacy's come up with as staff and working with the Owners Association. I wonder if it wouldn't be a good idea, if I was the chair of the Owners Association, I'd want to talk to staff about amending rules and regulations to make sure that they work in whatever building code requirements can be included so that in future, when they need to enforce something on the owner association level, it's more easily done without having to go to the city. A lot of times, if they can do a fine or something else on an owners association level, and if they have staff's input into what would be the best things to make sure that they include, that might be a further way that they can work together. But I have to say that I agree, and given what Gary has said about, there's more involvement and more interest in making this work, I think that for all the surrounding property owners, that this really is their best shot. So I'll be voting in favor.
Yeah, and I concur with what's been said here. So do we have a motion?
I move the Planning Commission recommend Town Council approve the rezoning and remove the property from the Clark Farms PD.
Second?
It's been moved by Rich, seconded by Ruth Ann, that Planning Commission recommend Town Council approve the rezoning and remove the property from the Clark Plan Development. Please record your vote.
Sorry, Rosemary, technical difficulties. I have to rejoin one moment.
Save.
Okay. Let's see if it pops up.
That work.
I always feel like we should have a drum roll.
Something.
My voting box didn't pop up.
I did, didn't
Yeah, let's see.
Oh,
I? We'll do it again.
Okay.
That's fine. Okay, and the motion passes 4-0. Planning Commission items. Rich, is that appropriate to share what you shared earlier about John?
John?
Yeah.
Yeah, I received an email this week, or early this week, or either in the last week, that John's wife's services will be at the Pace Center on April 27th from 1 to 4. And it's going to be more like an open house, come and go thing.
Thank you, Rich. Any staff items, Bryce?
No, sir, there are not.
All right, then we will adjourn at 7:42.